And a very good Friday evening to you. This is Stormtracker 16 meteorologist coming to you from our weather office here. A little storm update to offer up to you. These are really nice opportunities to just kind of have a more kind of casual chat with you at home. We're doing our weather forecasts outside. We're kind of limited in time, usually just 3.5 minutes to deliver the forecast. But in this case, we actually have more time than that. And fortunately tonight, it's not exactly unlimited as I have to get ready for the 10 o'clock broadcast. But, enough time here to kind of go through things a little bit more casually with you and maybe even focus on areas just outside of our viewing area too, because this is going to be a big time storm that's coming, just not for us. We'll get cold, we'll get wind, and a little snow. The big snow is actually going to be out through the Boston area. These kind of big time storms like what's coming in here for the Northeast, these are the type of storms that start to spawn new weather geeks. I think back to being a kid, living through the blizzard of '93 in the Boston area, blizzard of '96, and then a big blizzard that we had in 2005 as well. And I remember hearing thunder snow for the first time in that and going, wow, this is so cool, and really getting excited about the science. So it's true, some of the big storms actually kind of bring out a new breed of us weather geeks. So look for them in about 25 to 30 years popping up on your television sets. Maybe a little bit less than that, because you're probably going to be 5 or 6 years old probably to remember some of these big events. But I want to take your maps full screen now and just kind of show you what we're looking at. And this is the area of low pressure that it is time to track. Earlier today, we actually just had the Arctic cold front starting to drop through. And out ahead of that, it was really squeezing out any bit of moisture that it could. And many of us ended up with anywhere from about 1 inch to 2 inches of snow, maybe a little bit more than that in spots. But now the Arctic cold front is dropping south. As I look at our backyard weather station, it's down to 21 degrees where we are, so a good sign that the cold air is really starting to filter in, and this is going to be a very dry and powdery snow. But there's your area of low pressure. It's taking over, and what you can kind of see, or at least what I'm kind of focusing in on, you can see this very heavy band of snow that comes from eastern Virginia, runs up through Maryland, through Delaware, and down through southern Jersey. So this is kind of the early stages of our storm really starting to strengthen. You can kind of make that out by these strong bands or heavy bands of snow that start to pop up. But also know that on the northwest side of this, you can start to see some of the light snow starting to fill back in on the radar in southeastern Pennsylvania. And even as I look out into our WNEP backyard, we're starting to get back into a little bit of light snow here. So we had kind of a steady light snow that went throughout much of the day, and then things kind of tapered off, but now we're starting to see that snow fill back in again. So this, yes, my friends, is now directly related to the coastal storm. So all of the snow from earlier today was all part of the Arctic cold front. So when we show you a snow accumulation map here, and in fact, I would want to go ahead and just do that now. We'll run back through some storm stuff and kind of bounce back and forth between the snow map. But this is in addition to what already fell today. So if you picked up 2 inches of snow, and then you see 4 inches between tonight through, let's say, about mid-afternoon tomorrow, your total would be 6, but, the 4 tomorrow would be just from the coastal storm. What we've seen up until this point was all just from the Arctic cold front. So this snowfall map represents in addition to what's already on the ground for you. So for our valley cities, we're thinking, another inch or two on the way here from the coastal snow. Once you get west of the valley cities, you start getting up into the Tuckahoocks, the Factorvilles, the Falls, into the back mountains, probably closer to a trace to an inch. Thinking you have to get a little bit further east to start to see some of the higher totals. Now, different ball game once you get to the Poconos. Okay, places like Canadensis and Tobyhanna and Gouldsboro. Also getting out to Shohola. Once you really get out into Pike County especially, boy, Milford, Bushkill, I guess Bushkill being in eastern Monroe County. But the bottom line is this: the further east you go, the higher your totals are likely to be. In addition to, of course, the higher elevations of the Poconos always seem to squeeze out a little bit of extra snow. So, Emerald Lakes, Pocono Pines, maybe 3 or 4 inches. But far eastern Pike County, wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if, we saw some 5-inch amounts from that far east, and maybe even a little bit more than that. But again, that's extreme east, most of us finding much less than that. And look out in central Pennsylvania. I mean, hello from Renova to Mill Hall, Trout Run, Buttonwood, Williamsport. I mean, you're not going to even hardly see a flake from the coastal storm itself. So, a lot of what's coming now is going to be mainly focused across far eastern Pennsylvania. Really, the big story for us with this is really going to end up being the wind as well as the cold temperatures. Here's kind of a broad northeast view of the temperatures. Look at some of the cold now. Buffalo, Syracuse, borderline single digits in Buffalo, already into the single digits in Syracuse. This is all going to get pushed south because now we're starting to see the wind pick up a little bit. It's nothing super strong, at least not yet, but it's enough to start to drag down some much colder air. So earlier when I was outside during the 7 o'clock broadcast, the temperature was 28 degrees. Down to 21 now, of course, at night, temperatures cool typically. But now we're really starting to feel the effects of kind of the wind ushering in this much colder air. So here's where we stand now, already seeing some single digits in places like Mansfield. We're close to that in Morris. Shikshini at 19, 22 at the airport down the road from us here, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton International. And looking at some teens, New Milford, and in Lenox. So we're starting to pull in some of the colder air into this system. Kind of another way to look at it, and this is probably a good map for folks maybe who are a little bit more weather geek centric. What you're looking at is water vapor satellite imagery. So it kind of gives you a sense of the upper level wind flows within our weather pattern through the jet stream. And what you can also pick out too is where you're starting to see some what we call mid-level moisture, which would be kind of indicated by a lot of this coloration here. So notice how that's actually backing up a little bit towards the coast too. So that's why those coastal areas and then up into New England are looking at just some extreme snowfall amounts. It will not be surprising to find someone in eastern Massachusetts, perhaps down through Long Island or Rhode Island, that comes away with like 3 feet of snow out of this. And that's not even in the drifts. The winds, especially in coastal areas, we're talking well over 50 miles an hour, even some hurricane force gusts, not out of the realm of possibility there. So, I mean, this is going to be a big time weather maker, but just for us, it's going to be more about some wind in the cold as opposed to the snow. So while eastern New England gets pounded with 2 feet of snow, some isolated 3-foot amounts, we're only talking about a couple of inches by the time all is said and done. I want to run you through the timeline of the snow, and then I'll back things up again, and we'll start to talk about how the wind will be a player for us. So here's just kind of a broad view of the track of the storm. So, as it stands right now, it's starting to track up the coastline. It's going to start to throw back some moisture our way. And for several hours between tonight, really it's more than several hours, it'll be tonight through about midday to mid-afternoon tomorrow, just kind of depending on where you are. This will be when we start to find some of our coastal snow accumulation. Now, it really is very light right now. I don't expect it to ever be overly heavy, but as the wind starts to pick up, the visibility will get a little bit reduced here. So the coastal low tracks off of the New England coastline, and it pulls out of our area by about mid-afternoon tomorrow. So the timing is basically now through 12 to 3 o'clock tomorrow is when we'll find some of our coastal snow. However, again, it's not going to be all that heavy, certainly nothing like what they're looking at a little bit further to the east. In terms of wind, yeah, this is going to be a pretty big player for us. So tomorrow, when you wake up, not too bad, at least not yet, but by late afternoon, as the storm is really strengthening, although it is pulling away at this point, we're talking about some gusts into the valleys in the mid-30s of miles per hour. And then for the hilltops, we may find some gusts tomorrow evening pretty close to 50. So for those of you who are doing some hiking, maybe a little skiing tomorrow, as you get up in elevation, you can see anytime afternoon, the wind gusts are going to start to pick up. And temperatures tomorrow aren't expected to be all that warm. We're thinking generally in the teens should do it for daytime highs tomorrow. Even in our valleys, we're thinking about, anywhere from 15 to 18 degrees. That means our higher elevations, the actual air temperature tomorrow may not even make it out of, let's say, the 11 to 14-degree range. Now you couple that with those wind gusts that we just talked about, gusting maybe as high as 50 miles an hour, and you're talking about some pretty dangerous wind chills, perhaps dipping below, the feels-like temperature dipping below 20 below zero. There are a couple of wind chill advisories, but the timing on both of these, they're actually a little bit separated. So the wind chill advisory for Tioga, Bradford, Susquehanna, Wyoming, Sullivan, and northern Lycoming, as well as northern Clinton counties. That's a wind chill advisory for tonight through 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Weather Service offices both in State College and Binghamton have already kind of hinted at issuing an additional one for tomorrow night into Sunday morning. The one for Carbon and Monroe counties, that's a wind chill advisory for tomorrow night into Sunday morning. But, just because you may not have an advisory tonight, or maybe you don't even get one over the course of the next 2 days, doesn't mean that it's not going to be cold and windy. It most certainly will be. There's just some certain threshold criteria for these types of things to be issued by the National Weather Service. I want to do a recap of this I want to show you the snowfall map one more time, and then maybe I'll try to take a question or two as I kind of peruse through the Facebook feed here. So the coastal low snow, that's what's starting to take over now. So the Arctic cold front that brought us that snow earlier, that's that's pushed to the south, not really a concern for us anymore. Now we're getting into that coastal low snow. The steadiest of the snow is really going to be basically from now through, let's call it about noon to 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And the highest snowfall totals generally to the east of Interstate 81, so mainly we're focusing in here on the Poconos. The wind is really going to be ramping up later in the day tomorrow, mostly afternoon through about, let's say, the 10 or 11 o'clock tomorrow night time frame. That's when those gusts in the valleys will be in the mid-30s of miles per hour, but higher elevations could certainly be looking at some gusts closer to 50 miles per hour. All of us, while the snow is really only impactful, at least in some case, basically from Interstate 81 and points east, all of us are feeling the cold, all of us are feeling the wind. It's going to be one of those weekends where, maybe you are an outdoor adventurer like myself, like my wife. You're just going to have to throw on some extra layers, try to cover up your exposed skin. Don't let it stop you from going out necessarily. As always, just be prepared. Maybe you're someone who wants to just kick it inside. Make sure you throw an extra couple of logs on the old wood stove there, and that'll keep you a little bit extra comfy. Again, we're talking about some snowfall totals that, aren't overly impressive. I'll back it up to that snowfall map. In our valley cities, maybe as much as an inch or two from the coastal snow, and it's going to be in the Poconos where we're looking at, some of those higher totals, 4 inches perhaps, maybe as much as 5, just kind of depends on where you are. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to kind of just scroll through some of the comments that I'm thinking here. People asking about whether the groundhog will see their shadow. Thank you, April Muffin, giving the winter detail. You're more than welcome for that. Diane Beckett, hello. Thanks for chiming into this. And someone saying they're in Florida. What are the total amounts for 40 Fort? Asks Valerie. Okay, so you're in our valley cities here, Valerie. So you can generally expect around an inch, maybe as much as 2 inches of snow. Hello from Honesdale, says Mike. How much snow can you expect? Okay, well, you're in our 1 to 4 inch contour. I'd expect somewhere around, let's call it about 3 inches, give or take, on in the Honesdale area. The timeliness in Wilkes-Barre, asked Marty. Well, it's already starting to snow now. This is part of the coastal storm, so you're going to expect the snow to be falling now through about, let's call it about midday tomorrow, and then it's going to start to pull on out of here. Some people hoping for some warmer weather. Well, you're going to like what's coming up for the middle of next week. Heavy snow, says Brandon, in Pike County. Well, the definition for some heavy snow is actually visibility below about a half a mile, and I don't think that's really occurring out here, at least not just yet, and looks like that real heavy stuff will be further east. Can it still change? Asked Lori. Of course, anything is really possible, but I think what we're really keyed in on now is that we're not going to be the jackpot. This is what we've been stressing really all week long, that the storm was mainly going to be a much higher impact deal for New England, and that's certainly playing out here as we look at some of the weather maps tonight. So, does someone go from, the trace to 2 inch contour and see 3 or 4 inches of snow? Yeah, of course. It's always a possibility, but, we're certainly kind of focused in on now of New England being the real jackpot, and we're going to see far, far less than that. I'm kind of scrolling through some comments. Some folks hoping to keep it warm. Stroudsburg area, asked Lorraine. You're pretty far east, so I wouldn't be surprised if a 4 or 5 inch total can be in your neck of the woods. No snow in Shamokin, says Roger. Yeah, really not expecting much out your way. Maybe a little trace, a little dusting, something like that. But as you go further east, that's why you're going to be seeing some of the higher totals. Lehighton 2 to 3 inches, says Mike. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Did the system phase? Asked Brian. Yes, the phasing is actually ongoing now. And when I show you the water vapor satellite imagery, you can actually kind of see that. So this is, again, some kind of weather geek stuff, but our southern and northern stream jet streams kind of merging together, and you can kind of see that here. See how this is some very dry air getting wrapped around the bottom of this dip in the jet stream flow. So that's some really strong winds wrapping around. And so, yeah, that's a good sign of phasing with this storm, and that's why it's continuing to strengthen. Still scrolling through some of the comments. We're still live here, so if you would like to chime in, ask a question, you're more than welcome to. The wind, says Dale, you're probably going to be seeing some winds tomorrow, probably in the order of some 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts. Jessup says, John, Jessup, really not a lot of snow, maybe an inch or two possible there. You're very welcome for these updates. And is it moving more west? Not so much. The closed low that we're going to be monitoring in the upper levels of the atmosphere, still far enough off the Jersey coast that we're not overly concerned with it. And not seeing too many more real questions that are coming in. So we'll run through that snowfall map one more time, through the impact map one more time, and then we'll probably call this a night. So again, for valley cities, an inch or two possible from this coastal storm, but certainly those higher snowfall totals the further east that you go. Again, you get out to Matamoros, you get out to Shohola, you head out all throughout eastern Pike County, and that's some of the spots that'll end up finding some of the higher snowfall totals. The Dingman's Ferries, again, Bushkill, Stroudsburg, Greeley, Lackawaxen even. You could be looking at maybe closer to the 4-inch, maybe a little bit more than that. But as you head westward from there, you're probably more likely to fall in the 1 to 4-inch category. The further west still, and the amounts drop off further. Once you get out to central Pennsylvania, really not looking at much in the way of snow at all. The big story for a lot of us will be the cold and the wind. There are some wind chill advisories to talk about. Temperatures over the course of the weekend likely confined to the teens for highs, dipping below 0 at night. Our valleys looking at gusts into the mid-30s of miles per hour tomorrow afternoon and evening. Hilltops could see some gusts closing in on 50 miles per hour. So the coastal low snow taking over now. Steadiest snow is basically from now through about noonish tomorrow. Things will be tapering off after that. We talked about the strong winds. We've talked about the real cold and bitter wind chills. So this is certainly a system, again, that a lot of weather geeks will be kind of born from out of all this, because they'll get geeked out watching coverage on TV and maybe decide that's something that they might want to get into. It's kind of my story too, so it's certainly one that I share with a lot of them. But again, for us, more about the cold and the wind this weekend, and really not so much about the snow. Enough that you'll probably be shoveling and plowing in the Poconos, and if you get some stuff going on early tomorrow morning, especially, there'll be some impacts with that. But for a lot of us, especially in central Pennsylvania, nothing at all. And even in the valley cities, this is more of kind of a nuisance event locally. Much bigger story as you look off towards the east. We're going to be live on WNEP2 at 10 and WNEP at 11. We'll bring you some more updates in terms of the winter storm with that, and of course your latest news and sports during that time as well. So take care, have a happy, safe Friday night and weekend. We hope that you'll be joining us at 10 and 11 for our newscast, and of course you can always stay up to date with our app as well as our website, WNEP.com. Take care, we'll see you on TV.